What's up, guys? It's your boy Stevie G coming back at you with another episode of the Seamless Garage Podcast. And look who I got with me.
Oh yeah, back from the dead.
Back at like a crack at it with DJ. And this bad beast right here, don't mind her. So we've been talking for a while. It's been a minute, obviously. There's been a lot going on. We'll get you guys caught up on basically what's been going on in the shop. We're going to do a separate video on that, so be on the lookout for that on YouTube. We'll be giving you guys an update on what has been going on, and we got a lot of info that we're going to put out there as well. We got a lot of old videos that we want to release that never got finished, and so we want to get that content out to you guys. But before then, we wanted to do a disclaimer. So anyway, this episode is going to be about things to think about when doing a project, right? Like we're gonna do a whole series on it, on different topics, but today we really want to talk about, we're gonna do a whole series on things to think about when doing your project. So like just different things, different topics, but this one's gonna be about specifically about choosing the project car, like the car itself, the canvas, if you will, or you know, whatever you want to call it, you know. The platform, I guess is that's what I said. Choosing the platform that you want to use to start the build, because once you, I mean, you can bail out at any moment, but once you commit, like you really want to stay committed to that.
You gotta be strategic when you're selecting them, because different year models, there's little differences. Even if it's the same making model, just a year alone can make a big difference.
Right, and we've learned that with your truck, with my car, with the EF. And just being in the flip game, we've learned that. Some things we thought were the same, and definitely not. Certain year models you may miss out on. So that's stuff we're going to go over. So I guess that's the first thing we should talk about, I think, is the main topic we talked about. Let's spin off on it like you were talking about year models. But let's talk about the main thing we're talking about when you pick that project car, you need to look at, how bad do you want, you got to decide, right? You got to decide, like, how bad is it that you want that particular bike style on that particular platform? If it's a popular platform, then that's not a big deal. If it's your dream car and it is a popular platform, you're good. If it's like me, where like my dream car is like kind of like, like there's support, but not like the 2Gs, like the 1G, there's less support. Like the same engines here. So performance-wise, I've got all the parts that I can get. Body parts, man, so limited on that stuff, man. I gotta find junker cars and stuff like that. So if you're going with a car like mine, you've gotta, is it worth it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna probably spend more to find parts, and when I find parts, they're gonna be used and maybe wore out.
I think you just have to decide what category you're in. If you have a car in mind that holds sentimental value, then it may be worth it to do the extra work and extra looking.
Right.
But if your heart's not in it, like as far as sentimental value, like you're just wanting to do a project. Then I would choose one that parts are more available for. But I mean, you basically just have to decide what route you want to go. I mean, like if it's a car you had in high school and you want to redo it and go that route, and you just can't have anything else, and you have to take the cons with the pros, because you may have to do a little extra work to get it to work. But it is doable. I believe anything's doable nowadays. So that's the good news, but it just may be a little harder.
I think you have two things to consider, and it depends on the type of person you are, but I think you have two things to consider. The time you have to do the project, and how much money you're willing to spend. I think those are two very important things, because like you said, anything's doable. How much money are you willing to spend? Because you may need a lot of fabrication if it's a car that's never been touched modified wise.
And another thing to keep in mind also, you're talking about money, is even if you go a cheaper route, before you even get involved in doing a project, just go ahead and count on, after you do all your figuring on parts and all that, just count on it being a lot more than that. Because there's going to be stuff you run into that you was not ready for.
Things you're going to buy twice?
I'm going to say at least count count on it being double what you're expecting.
And we're gonna go through a whole nother video on the OBS build where there were some parts that DJ had to buy twice that we made some decisions and we backed out on, but we learned in the long run. So so like you said, that's an added expense. You're not getting that money back, so that's an added expense, but it's a lesson learned, right?
Yeah.
So
make sure you're financially able to do it before you jump into it, because you don't want to jump into something and then not have the finances to go any further once you're into it. That'll just disappoint you.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of these half-built projects come, right? And they're on sale in the marketplace all the time.
And you were talking about time as well. Count on taking your time. I wouldn't try and I thought the truck was going to be running like a month, like a couple weeks. And if you're going to do it right, just count on it taking a pretty good while. I mean, I would never rush it. After doing, this is my second one working on, I've learned don't ever rush that thing, because once it's done, you're gonna appreciate it a whole lot more that when you take your time on it than if you're just trying to rush and cut corners.
And you're gonna run into things like me where you have life that like, maybe it's not money or anything else stopping you, but life happens and you can't get right on it and stay on it. So it's something that you gotta hash out and understand that it's gonna take time.
If you can make it a priority, you can probably get it done a lot faster.
100% like you did, man. Like you really, I mean, you got the OBS knocked out.
But it's still not nowhere near where it needs to be.
When I'm editing one of our older videos right now about when we went up there and got my trans and everything else all at one time. And one of the things you and I both said, I think you said it mainly, was like we want to have both our cars running by the end of the year, and that was in 2020. When we look at 2022, we're at the end of the year. So 2 years later, I'm still working on this thing. So,
but you've had a baby in the meantime.
Yep, ups and downs.
It isn't like you've been out here just
not ups and downs negatively, but like
if we wanted to have it running, we could.
Yeah, but we would,
we have jobs.
We have jobs and family. Like I have to dedicate time to my family now. That's very important to me. And I've realized that, and that's what I want to do. So, but yeah, like getting back on that topic. You just need to realize that it's going to take time, so you've got to decide, because that's where DJ and I see it all the time, man, on Marketplace, where it's a half-built project and they just don't have the time anymore, and it's like, man, you got to come to that realization before you buy the car. Otherwise, you're going to waste money, because as DJ and I know, you very seldom you're going to get the money back that you put into a project. Like
most of the time.
Because you're paying usually, like if you're buying new parts, so you're paying MSRP. Yeah. You're not about to sell it back that way, and if you sell a car that's half done, you leave all the parts on it, you're not going to get what you put into it. It's just not going to happen.
Not even
modified. People don't want to buy modified cars, really. Like they're not going to pay premium for modified cars because they don't know what they're getting into anyway. You would have to literally list
unless it's completed. They don't want a project.
If it's a complete car, absolutely, you can make a whole.
Usually, people look for uncompleted cars to get a deal on it. Because you know you can get it cheaper.
Yeah, that's the deal. So you're going to end up taking a loss. So you might as well go ahead and take that financial decision and decide, like, I'm going to commit and I'm going to finish this project. But that's where the blueprint comes in. That's where, like DJ was saying, you need to. So with DJ's project on the OBS, he didn't care how much he was going to spend. He was going to finish it regardless. If you have that type of project where you don't care, it's sentimental like the OBS is, where you're going to finish it regardless, then by all means, go for it. But if you're on a budget or whatever, or you don't know what you're getting into, it's just best to sit down and write out, and like you said, add a couple of grand on top of whatever your total is, and expect to spend that.
Because you're going to get $50 to death. I mean, it's going to happen. You're going to need little bolts and nuts. That you're not going to have laying around. Even if you have a bunch of that stuff, you're going to need some stuff that you don't have. And you're going to have to make part store runs.
So time and money on that, and then again, the platforms like availability, that's going to extend your time. Is it a car like mine where, the condition of the project that you get, how far are you going to get into it? How complete is it? Is it already running? And so you don't have to worry about that part. These are all things you've got to think about.
The more common if you're doing like a swap, the more common a swap is, the cheaper it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's going to be a lot more aftermarket support to support that swap because it's more common.
Mm-hmm.
The less common you're trying to go, the more it's going to be.
The more expensive it is.
So you got to play that into effect. If finances is something you're concerned with, then you probably want to go a route that is more traveled than others.
100%, yeah.
Like the OBS. I'm doing the OBS because it was my dad's, but there's been so many of them things, LS swapped, it wasn't nothing.
Yeah,
I mean, it was so easy.
There was so much information on that forum that you went on.
Anybody could do it. I'm part of an LS group on Facebook. It's got like 60,000 people.
Yeah.
And you can literally go on there. You don't even have to ask questions. You just go on the search tab and type in any keyword about what you have a question about, and there will be 50 posts already there from 5 years ago. And there will be hundreds of comments, and you can find all your information on there.
Yeah, and you did that whole build by yourself, and that says a lot about what you learned in the case swap, but also like the info you were getting off that group helped out a lot. I mean, that's another thing. If you're not familiar to that platform, obviously we're not really talking to people that have a bunch of projects already. We're talking to someone who's trying to start their project, things to think about. So once you make the commitment, you buy the car, go ahead and start joining some of them groups on Facebook. Forums aren't completely dead, by the way, and even if they are, if it's an older platform, there's anything you can think about, you can search. It's on Google, it's on some of those forums on that particular platform. If it's a worthwhile platform that someone's already touched. I mean, if you're talking about a car that's not very popular or not popular at all, or maybe it's just not popular as far as modified goes, get ready to just fabricate. I mean, you're going to be fabricating everything. So anyway, the more info, the better, and you can build that. And that's another way that you can really get a good idea of what you're going to be spending. You can actually talk to some of these people that have done a similar build to you or a similar style to you, and get an idea of what they spent. And then also take into consideration when they did it, because of inflation and everything else. But it's a good path to start on. You know what I mean?
And the project, if you got a neighbor down the street or something that has a truck or a car that you're interested in, the canvas that you buy can save you a lot of money too, because you may buy an older vehicle that the owner replaced the whole front end on it or something, has a bunch of new parts already on it, so that you can save a lot of money just by picking the right shell that you're going to use if you're doing a swap. Or
that's a plus.
Yeah, I mean,
that EF that you got already had coilovers on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was definitely not built into the deal. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you don't pay any extra for stuff like that.
No.
When you buy it like that, especially if you buy a vehicle that isn't running. If they did a lot of suspension work and all that, you're getting all that stuff for pretty much free.
Definitely something to consider when you get to deciding on which one you want to purchase.
And that's going to save you a lot of money in the long run.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, and straight, if the body's straight, that's a plus. You ain't got to do as much body work. And we're talking about older vehicles. I mean, usually projects are done with older vehicles.
Right. Yeah, if you're
vehicles that are blown up or something.
Yeah, if you're doing something on something fairly new that you may be still making payments on, then maybe a little bit different road for you, because you're gonna be making those payments, and then you've got to put money on top of that to do
I would never recommend making a project out of your daily.
Yeah,
that's never a good idea, really. I mean, there may be certain cases where that's okay, where you're not doing a whole lot.
Yeah, depending on how extensive you get with the modifications, you're just gonna make it less and less reliable.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of the beast. People don't want to admit that, but that's the nature of the beast. I mean, when you start modifying,
you can make them very reliable, but it's gonna take time. You're gonna have to work the kinks out. Because when you first take off, you're gonna run into things that you miss.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing that with my truck now.
Yeah, we're seeing that. We're gonna see it with this one. I can guarantee you. There's gonna be a leak or something.
Yeah.
Every build, I feel like there's a leak.
I had a coolant leak on my truck, and I was wondering, I'm like, man, that thing's leaking. It was where my hoses go into the heater core, and I had just forgotten to tighten them up.
Yeah, you just forgot.
You're gonna notice little things when you're finished with it that you forgot.
Yeah.
Just little things that you missed.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep everything in mind when there's so much. When you've touched everything, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really not talking about finished projects. We're
right.
talking about picking one. I don't know. I would recommend doing a lot of research. If you got one in mind, I would do a lot of research before you pull the trigger on it, because you may not like it as much after you do the research.
Yeah, you may realize that it's a limited platform.
Yeah.
I mean, you may not. You may have loved this car as a child growing up and stuff, and then you may get into it and realize that it's not what all that it's cut out to be. You know, it may not. And another thing is like thinking about like the purpose of it, right? You know, obviously it's a project car, so but what's the purpose? Are we going to be racing with it? Is it going to be a street beast?
Yeah.
Is it going to be a show car? These are things to think about as well, because if we're talking about performance, then you got to think, do I really like? A lot of us like cars, like especially growing up, off of looks, maybe, right? Like we had no idea what was under the hood until we got a little bit older and understood the engines. So, but if you still like idolize a car, and you find out under the hood, it's got a single cam, whatever, and you're talking about you want to race this thing, and you're talking about you want 6, 7, whatever, more horsepower. You need to be starting to look into, okay, how much can this single jingle handle, or what kind of stuff are people swapping in, and then how much is that costing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is all stuff that you've got to plan out.
Yeah.
DJ and I are going to be mashing our heads together and coming up with a PDF / like something that you can print out on coming up with this. It's going to take some time, but we're going to put our heads together. We're going to bounce off each other on our Google Drive. We're going to build one. That way you can kind of fill in the blanks, some things to think about, especially big money points.
And that's another thing too I didn't think about until you said that. Your intentions on the build.
Mm-hmm.
If your intentions are just to get a swap running, like do a swap and get it running, that's easy.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wouldn't consider that a project though. I mean,
right.
I consider a project something you're planning on restoring. We're either racing or
like a complete,
like a complete restore.
Right.
Is basically what we're talking about. But if you're just wanting to do a swap or something, that's going to be a lot cheaper route, but it will not be a lot cleaner route. It's not going to look as good, and definitely probably won't be as reliable.
Yeah, we'll put some pictures in right here of DJ's engine bay and what we did with it and the LS that we dropped in. If we wanted to do just that, we could have just dropped it in. We didn't have to prep the bay. We didn't have to paint the bay. We didn't have to buy all the new parts. I say we, I mean you.
Yeah.
Didn't have to buy. DJ bought all the new parts, man. The washer tank, right? Is that what you? Or is that the coolant tank? Overflow tank. So it's coolant overflow. It was yellowed and busted, I think, too, right? Put a new one in there.
Just everything under the hood.
New master cylinder, because it's a 90 or 90. It's a 90 model, so everything's yellowed. It was already white, so.
It was filthy. That engine bay was terrible.
Tuck harness, cleaning up the harness, all of that stuff. The aftermarket radiator. Well, we went with a different radiator, right? And different fans and stuff like that. Didn't have to do any of that.
No,
so it just depends on I say severity, but like the level of the build you want to do. How clean, But this is the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is all the things that you need to have in mind before you go in there. Because if you go in there without a plan, and you're just, I want to build this car, and you go in there without a plan, you're going to get down the road and you're going to buy a part, you're going to not make a decision, and you're going to buy a part, and it's not going to coexist with the part you already bought.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of two different goals, and you didn't realize it.
Yeah.
You've got to have all this planned out. You go in there and you buy. Let's say you don't know what's going on. I don't know how this would happen, but it's just a hypothetical. You go in there, let's say on my car, I go in there, and then I decide, I'm just kind of jumping the gun, building the engine and stuff, and so I go in there and I buy a tubular manifold for a T4 turbocharger, right? I don't know. Maybe a whole set HX40 or something like that, or HX35. And then I've got my 16G that I want to bolt up to it. Well, that's a different flange.
Yeah.
Now I've got to either buy a different turbo or a different manifold, but either way, that's wasted money. I got to find a way to sell the other unless I want to keep it.
That just goes with doing research.
So again, if you have this plan of how you want to do it and you write it down, you'll save money, you'll know where you're headed, and again, you even need that for asking for advice, because someone's going to, okay, what bill do you have planned? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people in the community that are happy to help, but they got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
They got to know what your build is.
That's a lot on, I've been looking into cam swaps on the LSs, and that's the main question that they ask when you're doing that. What are your intentions?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's your
performance target? You know, what are your horsepower and
They
torque
want to know
targets?
that before anything else.
Right. And then it goes into, okay, we choose the cam. Now it's like, depending on how high the lift the cam is, we're talking about different rockers and springs and everything else, right?
Yeah, whatever your intentions are is going to decide a lot of things down the road.
It literally changes the path, right? You can literally take a turn.
Yeah.
And every branch of the road takes you down a different road. And then you bought parts for this road over here. You know what I mean? Like, it just,
but one thing I have learned, cutting corners is not the way to go. I mean,
yeah. Like I said, we're going to do a whole video on that, because
if you're one of the ones that wants to do it on a budget, I would personally, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. You do whatever you want to do.
Right.
But I'm going to say if you're on a budget to where you can't afford to replace stuff, or you just want to slap it in there and go, I wouldn't even waste my time doing it, because you're going to have more problems.
Yeah. You might as well save your money.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're going to have more problems. You might as well save your money. And let's say you do, because look, on your OBS, you can get Chinese harnesses for like $200, right?
Yeah.
But the question is, okay, cool. It's nice and it's clean and everything, and we
And you can use a stock harness too.
And you can use a stock harness, but I'm saying, let's say we want it to look nice and new and clean. Okay, but the question is, like, how long is that going to last? Versus if you went and bought a painless, or you went and bought a, was it B&P, right? How long is it going to last versus those? And it may last just as long, but you're
it's just a gamble.
You're rolling the dice, man. Like, you're rolling the dice on it. You don't know.
There's a lot of people that have done good with them, but you could be that one. You just got to take into consideration when you buy parts like that I could be the one that gets a bad one.
Yeah.
And if I do, I can't blame nobody but myself, because I knew that was possible before I bought it.
And one thing we know about buying cheap parts and stuff like that is what happens. There's no customer service. There ain't nobody on the other end of that phone.
No, they're in China somewhere.
So you're not about to get your money back, and if you do, it's going to be a hassle.
Yeah, it's
not worth it. So the way I see it is, how much is the painless and B&P harnesses? For like the one you want.
They're about $550.
So $550 versus like, what's the cheapest one? Like
about $200. Yeah.
So the way I see it is, you end up paying $750 instead of $550.
Yeah, because you're gonna
have to replace it anyway.
Yeah.
So again, just things to think about. I'm sure that some of the listeners have probably already thought about some of these things.
Now, there are people that have been successful, and I think this route would be better. If you're trying to stay on a budget, there are better ways to do it than other ways. I mean,
there's ways to save money.
Because I've seen people tear down the stock harness and literally go through and DP in every wire that wasn't needed. That way, there's no connectors on there they don't need, and make a smaller fuse block for it. So you can make your own standalone, but it's going to take you more time, and you're going to have to do a lot more research. So there is possibilities there to make it reliable, because you're going to have OEM wires and harness there.
Yeah.
But you also got to consider, even though it's OEM,
it's 20 years old.
It's 22 years old.
Yeah, 22-year-old harness, so it's going to be brittle, man. Yeah. It's going to be brittle, regardless.
And you don't want to get your project running and have wiring issues.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at right now. Just ordered a standalone.
Yeah.
Because I tried. That was the last corner I cut. I got the stock harness on there.
We lived and we learned on that one.
Yeah.
Lived and we learned. So.
But I got a BP automotive harness on the way.
That's beautiful.
And they emailed me and told me thank you for ordering.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That always makes you feel better, right?
Yeah.
I like when I get left a note.
Yeah.
I love.
I actually seen a testimonial of the guy that started BP, the owner. He started out of a single wide trailer house.
Wow.
And I looked on the LS group at reviews, because I always look at the reviews.
Yeah.
At hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And there's some critics on that group. I mean, if something's bad, they're gonna tell you.
They're gonna let you know the good, the bad, the ugly, right?
And every review I ever seen on them harnesses was good. I didn't see one bad one. Yeah.
Well, as soon as you told me that they do a continuity check pin to pin before they send it out to you, and it's OEM color matched.
Yeah.
I'm like, do we need to look anywhere else? I mean,
now another one is the Painless. They're also got really good reviews.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good options.
I've heard a lot of good stuff about Painless for years, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about old head hot rods. I mean,
yeah, I mean, Painless has some nice harnesses.
I've heard about that since I was a kid. I feel like Painless, man. I think they were one of the pioneers.
A lot of people live by them.
Yeah. I feel like Rawwire is another one. If you're looking JDM, I think they've been around for a long time too.
Yeah, they're good.
But I think Painless does JDM stuff as well.
I'm sure.
I think they do JDM stuff too.
They make harnesses to where if you don't have your headlight harness, you can literally put their harness in any vehicle you got and make your headlights and blinkers and everything work.
And match it up with
just off their standalone.
That's cool. That's cool. Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing. Your harness is going to be. That's something you got to decide on. After you figure out what car you want to go with, then you start looking into stuff like that. Like, engines are nothing. You can find them all day. Yeah. If you decide to rebuild it or have it rebuilt, that's not the thing. Because if you're a do-it-yourself person, you're gonna want to do some research on what harness you decide on. Unless you're going carburetor or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot simpler.
Then you really don't have to.
Which really, I say simpler, but it's really not any more complicated to do. Fuel injector.
Yeah, it's not complicated. It's just, I feel like a lot of people get tripped up by wiring. If there's an electrical issue, they don't know where to look. And so it's just a little bit more mysterious. But other than that,
there's a lot of thought that needs to go in.
And again, we're going to break it down. We'll probably go into a section on engines. We'll probably go into a section on like suspension and stuff like that. On kind of all the stuff that we've been tripped up on. But right now we're just talking about the platform itself. Just, making sure you're making the right choice. And because, let's be honest, it's a financial commitment. And the thing is, we're not doing this for the money or anything like that, right? We're doing this because that's what we want to do. It's a project we want to do, and it's probably something that you've been looking forward to for a long time. So,
and you can't be intimidated either. It's not beyond you to do a project. I don't believe it's beyond anybody who knows how to work a wrench.
No, man.
To figure it out, you may not know at the moment, but you can learn it.
You learn so much off that EF, man.
Yeah.
You learned so much off that EF hatchback.
Yeah.
That you were able to apply it on the Chevy, and you just went on.
Yeah, it's been good. I got to get that wiring taken care of, but it's
and that's the fun part about the process. You if you are a person that's kind of timid, like you really want to do a project, you're kind of worried about it, you being solo, and you really don't have anybody to teach you. Again, we have a bunch of videos. Also, comment below and tell us what you need to learn. We'll do a video on it. But the main thing about it is, that's the cool thing about projects is, you can get in over your head, but if you start out slow, like that's the whole point is you get to learn it. You get to learn the car, the process.
I'm probably the worst about worrying about messing something or getting in over my head. You know that.
And a lot of times, like you're like, oh, this was simple. Like
it's a lot easier than what you ever thought it would be once you dive into it. Like I never wanted to mess with wiring. Yeah. That's the reason I sent the truck off.
Yeah, you were kind of worried about that because I hadn't touched one before, and so you had your doubts.
So I was forced to dive into wiring because I had to pull the engine out. And go through it all.
And we'll talk about that on another video, but we went through some stuff.
Yeah.
Going outside of our area.
Once I got into the wiring and looked at it, it's a lot easier than what I ever thought.
Yeah.
So don't ever limit yourself to what you're capable of, because the chances are you're probably capable of a lot more than you give yourself credit for.
I mean, the important part is the main part is like, all of us start out not knowing. You know what I mean? All of us start out not, experience does get you there, but all of us start out not knowing. So like, you've got to start that journey at some point. And with you, that's what I really like about you, and I wish there were more technicians. Like we're going in the mechanical field now. More technicians that were like you, and the fact that they were cautious. There's other ones out there like Bull and the China Hutch, and they think they know everything, and they go in and they destroy stuff. Yeah. Whereas you're a little bit more like, hey, can you show me this the first time? And we go into it. But like, what's funny is like I've heard you so many times say that, man, I could have did that myself, or man, that was easier than I thought. And it's and it's just because you overcomplex things,
That's a good way to stress yourself out. I mean,
it is, isn't it?
And if you're getting stressed on a project, that ain't nothing. That's not what you.
You should get the other way. You should get excited.
You want to be enjoying your time, and that's what I've learned to do is just enjoy what I'm doing at the moment. If I'm changing the brakes out, I'm trying to enjoy that. Don't think about too much at one time. Just focus on what you're working on.
Jump in.
Get to the other when you get there.
One piece at a time. Because looking at this car,
you will get overwhelmed. You can get overwhelmed.
Yeah, because you know all the stuff you got to get done.
I remember when I had the Honda out and I had the headlight harness when I was tucking it, and just had a nest of wires in there. And Derek came over there. He's, Stevie, get him. He's got spaghetti over here. I just had a nest of wires. And I'm like, I don't know what any of these do. I'm lost. And my car's never gonna run. I thought it was over with, but
I remember that.
You just gotta take a deep breath and get into it.
Yep. Just calm down, focus, and don't overstress it.
It's mechanical. I always think of it as mechanical. It can be fixed if I break it.
100%.
If I mess something up, it can be fixed.
That's the way I feel, man. That's 100% how I feel about cars. Is anything happens to it, I can fix it. I'll figure it out. You know what I mean?
And it's taught me a lot too, messing stuff up like that, on how to not do that again.
Right.
Like breaking 10mm bolts.
Yeah.
I used to be really bad about that. Now I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people are really bad about it. So that's not too surprising. And those tends do like to snap, depending on their location.
Yeah.
But I think we pretty much hit that topic, man. Is there anything else you got on that topic in general, as far as picking a platform? I mean, pretty much.
Not really. I mean, I think from here on we'll start diving into other things to think about.
Getting into the details.
Yeah.
Getting into the nitty gritty, but.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff. Once you do decide and you find the car you want, you go to buy it. There's a lot of other stuff you got to look at, which that'll probably be for another.
We can do that. I didn't think about that, but we can do a whole other episode. I'd say whole other episode on that. You know, we did an episode on negotiating and stuff, but we didn't do another one on that. But we can do a whole other episode on what to look for when you're trying to get that.
Yeah, when you found the one you want, I think that needs to be the next one.
Like for instance, I have one that just popped up. I don't want to go too long on it, but on the 2Gs, if I wouldn't have been in those groups and in those forums, I wouldn't have known that on the 2Gs in the back where the hatch is, so the shocks, right, the struts that come up, they like to rust out right there.
Yeah.
And if you don't look for that, you won't know.
Yeah.
They'll rust out, and there's really not a repair for them. I mean, you can buy those towers. So it's a common thing with them, and it doesn't matter. It's not about north, it's about water setting in them. Yeah. So anywhere.
So that's one thing to look at too.
Yeah.
Is do your research on common problems. Or whatever you decide on, do your research on, chances are, if you already had it in mind which one you want to do, you already know a lot about it. So don't overlook them common problems and make sure you check everything. And don't ever look at them at nighttime, because you'll miss a whole lot.
Oh man, you miss so much stuff, man. Don't buy a car at nighttime. If somebody wants to meet up with you, just wait. But yeah, maybe that's a good tip is if you're getting into it and you haven't pulled the trigger on a platform yet, I mean, if you have, this video is probably too late. But if you haven't pulled the trigger on a platform, maybe you chill out and you do your research for a good month or so, or however long, but do your research until you truly understand the ins and outs, the common problems, because I don't care what car it is, name like your favorite car or whatever. R34 Sky.
There's going to be a common problem.
There's a common problem with every vehicle out there, and you want to make sure you're looking out for that. You want to make sure you're looking out for telltale signs of things.
And they all may have it, but some of them may have less than others. Like on the EG hatches, remember the rust? We went and looked at that one that was completely rusted out. And you had talked to somebody who said that's common. It was common. It is common. But I went and found that one and didn't have any. Yeah. So even though there's common problems, you can find some that are better than others. Right.
You got to decide whether that's what you want or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you want to deal with that common problem, or you want to find one that maybe that hasn't happened to you yet?
Yeah. So if you don't know anything about the platform that you're thinking about deciding on, do a lot of research on the common problem. And you brought up forums earlier, which don't ever get used anymore, really. But if you go back and look on them old forms, there's a lot of common problems in there.
Yeah.
A lot of information. I've used them even on my newer Chevy.
Yeah, I use it all the time.
Yeah. There's a lot of information in them forms that'll tell you a lot about a vehicle.
Yeah.
If I would have looked and did my research on my truck before I bought it, I may have went with a different year model. Just because of the little stuff I ran into.
Right.
That's my bad on that.
Yeah. On this particular body style right here, I'm lucky that I got a 91. See, they only made this body style 91, right? But the 91 shares so much stuff with the 92, 3, and 4, where the 1990 is all on its own.
Yeah.
Like everything is proprietary. Like it's the same engine.
Sometimes
stuff,
1 year makes it.
bolt locations are different, harness, connectors, all that stuff is different. You start, let's say you buy a project, you're probably going to have to go and get a parts car or something, maybe, if it's older. I can't deal with a 90 because I can't use much off of it. Maybe body parts. I can use body parts and stuff like that, but when it comes to inside the engine bay, a lot of stuff is not. I'm talking about even down to engine mounts and stuff.
Yeah.
The transmission is different.
And that's the thing. If you like a certain body style, do the research and make sure that what you're trying to do with that body style is practical. Because 1 year can literally make the difference, make a huge difference, and make the same swap that's easy for everybody else difficult on you. And you have the same body style. It looks the exact same, but everything's different under there. Like some of the OBSs have V6s in them. And there's a little different, there's different stuff that's required. Like we found out on the EG, putting a K in that thing, a K swap, was a lot, it required a lot more than some of the more common year models like the EK.
Yeah, you mean on the EF, right?
Yeah, on the EF. Did I say EG?
Yeah, you did.
I wish
the EG is actually easy, right?
Yeah, it's
cakewalk, total difference. But now, the reason we went with the EF is because we had been looking at that body style since we were kids, talking about building one.
So we were willing to do the extra, but if you don't want to have to hassle with all that, and that isn't what you have in mind before you get started, make sure you get the right year model, that way you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind and that's what you want, then go that route. But if not, you don't want to get in over your head.
Yeah. So I say, I guess to close this one out, I just say, do your research, make sure that you blueprint everything out, so the money you're going to want to spend on the project, make sure you know the goal of the project, like what you want out of it. And when you go ahead and you're very confident in what build you want to do, buy a sucker. And then don't look back. That's a decision you don't have to worry about anymore. You forget all about that, and now you just focus on that platform.
Yeah.
And then follow your blueprint. That's literally it. So
yeah, if money isn't a problem, go with whatever you want.
Go with whatever you want.
They have so many custom brackets you can order,
but most of us have several cars in mind that we wouldn't mind building.
Yeah.
So I'd say if it's your first project, again, decide what you want to do, but maybe go with the one.
And money not being an optional would make your job a lot easier, because if you're willing to spend the money on the extra swap parts, they make cross members that are modified to where you don't have to do like I had to.
You can do what you want.
You can. It can be a lot easier if you want to have nice quality parts that make the job a lot easier. But if not, it's not much more work to make it work if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. That's another decision. You have to decide whether how much work you want to put into it.
Yeah.
Do you like physical labor, or would you like to pay somebody that's already fabbed that for you and you can just install it? So a lot of things to think about. But anyway, be on the lookout for the other episodes on this. We're going to kind of break it down. I keep pointing at my car, but this is my platform, so that's what I'm talking about. But we're just going to break it down to each decision you got to make and things to think about on those things. So we appreciate y'all listening in. It's good to have DJ back on the podcast, and we'll see y'all in the next episode.